Today I'm going to be talking about my persuasive speech, what is titled Defunding the Police and Why Police Officers Are Needed. Opening thesis, police officers are an important part of society to serve and protect the thin blue line. This line that stands between the dark and the light and the good and the evil. This very line is protected at all costs throughout the men and women who wear a badge and uniform day in and day out, responding to things such as domestic violence of a drunk man with a weapon to his wife for the 18th time this year, responding to a child drowning in a lake during a 4th of July celebration, and being the first officer on scene, pulling that small lifeless body out to start CPR, for responding to a call after hearing, shots fired, officer down, where your brother or sister was attacked by open gunfire while sitting in a squad car watching over their city. Imagine knowing that those last words over the radio were the very last that you would hear from them, and there was nothing that you could have done to protect them or to stop this attack. As a wife married to a police officer, I know exactly what the risks my husband signed up for when he took the oath to serve and protect his community. Along with that comes a long list of others he signed up for. The hard and often long hours, the moments he misses with his family, the emotional disasters in his head for things you can never unsee, or the anger and failure of not being able to do more for a family, a child, a wife, a husband, a brother, sister, mother, or father. One thing I know for certain, that life is precious and death is imminent at any point in time. So that is why God made the police officer. There is a quote by Matthew 5:9 that states, Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. This is what I understand and know to be true. But what I cannot understand is the want to remove or defund the police officers of the country within communities large and small where they are clearly needed. What reasons, you may ask? Let me tell you about a few points. Defunding the police, funding the police, and lastly, humanizing the badge. What human stands behind that badge? In my first point, we talk about defunding the police. On May 30th, 2020, riots broke out in Minneapolis, Minnesota, following the death of George Floyd, a man who was arrested following a criminal action. The police then turned into what had been an atypical arrest, but then came out to be an 8-long-minute video releasing actions of an arrested police officer kneeling on this man's neck and not maintaining proper airway, which in turn was later pronounced deceased. These are the actions of one man's choice, regardless of the uniform and badge this man stood behind. What is important to understand is that based on this one man's actions on that terrible day does not make up for the thousands of men and women who wear the badge and uniform with honor, integrity, and bravery. Since the riots on this day broke out, many businesses and communities have lost the safety. Since the riots broke out on this day, many businesses, communities, safety, hope, justice, and generations of hard work were lost all in a matter of days. According to NPR News, a police precinct was burned and completely engulfed in flames. As the police attempted to stand down the precinct, it unfortunately fell. The loss of these buildings means far more than just a structure, but an income to a family, a place to connect with family and friends, a feeling of community. What happened that day was unforgivable with the former police officer and the victim incident. But rioting and looting a community to innocent and hardworking individuals is not the answer, nor does it boast a statement. Imagine the many of innocent lives that has this caused worry, fear, anxiety to their own community by their own people. Would you still want to take away the police from your city knowing that the number of calls in just one single day? This brings me to my next point, in funding the police. Something that needs to be understood about how the police departments are funded comes from the city, such as the city council board. There are federal, state, and city levels that make decisions for these departments as well. However, but are not limited to specific states, and each state governs their own decisions, laws, and implicates these very decisions. For example, in our city, the city board has made a decision about bringing 2 sergeant positions into the department crews to better utilize these officers for specific needs that patrolling officers would not be able to complete over a small period of time. Oftentimes, patrolling officers, they received cases from a set shift that they carry on for months with reports, investigations, and interviews, and it often goes uncompleted until further down the line. The same board and the police chief would approve these trainings that would be necessary for officers of all rankings for the safety of the officers, communities, and their surroundings. My husband is an SRO, which he is a school resource officer for the local school in our city. The state of Minnesota holds SRO trainings yearly throughout the state for these special reasons. And one reason in particular is that they can bring these trainings back to the schools and they can utilize them and keep the community safe. For example, during one of his 3-day-long trainings, my husband was trained for a program called ALICE. ALICE stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, Evacuate. This is an active shooter training that is used across the country in many schools, healthcare facilities, and businesses. According to the ALICE training, over 19,908,600 people are now prepared for the active shooter training since this. And this is all thanks to hands-on police officers training and educating to keep these children, staff, communities safe. Police officers are met with very unusual and unpredictable circumstances, and having these hand-on training keep their skills up to date and present situations. The same goes for gear and equipment. Being properly suited for any type of situation allows these officers to safely do their jobs and keeping themselves and others out of harm. For example, riot gear. That's a great example. It's very appropriate for this kind of situation as rocks and other projectiles can be thrown at officers. How can they protect those from harm if they are not properly trained or given proper gear to do so? Cutting these funds would eliminate them from getting the proper training and equipment. The funding would also aid more training to officers in dealing with mental health cases, as a high majority of the cases that they deal with have mentally ill persons. There needs to be a work on many levels for the mental health, as it's not just one focus with law enforcement. And to my last point here goes on to a quote. It says, "I am the police. I'm here to arrest you. You've broken the law. I did not write the law. I may even disagree with the law, but I will enforce it. No matter how you plead, beg, or attempt to stir my sympathies, nothing you will do to stop me from placing you in a steel cage with gray bars. If you run away, I will chase you. If you fight, I will fight back. If you shoot at me, I will shoot back. By law, I am unable to walk away. I am a consequence. I am the unpaid bill. I'm a fate with a badge and a gun. Behind my badge is a heart like yours. I bleed. I think. I love. And yes, I can be killed. And although I am but one man, I have thousands of brothers and sisters who are the same as me. They will lay down their lives for me, and I them. We stand together, a thin blue line, protecting the prey from the predators, the good from the bad. We are the police." This quote only begins to scratch the surface of what a police officer is and goes through. First, we need to identify that these men and women bleed, cry, feel, have families, make mistakes just the same as you and I. This is called being a human. The calls that these police officers are dealing with are left with the physical, mental, emotional, and psychological scars that are permanently embedded in them, and this is what makes them human. At the end of the day, while it is a job, it's also a calling to help people. Not everyone can do what a police officer does, and that is okay. This is why our world is so greatly diverse that we do not all have to do the same thing. Being able to educate and have a better understanding of what police officers do will instill quality character into the community. For example, being involved just in a simple sporting event with a presence giving a sense of security and safety to the public. Children see this and they have immediate role models to look up to, knowing that there are people out there that want to help them doing the right thing. This will also give the youth a sense of moral compass from right and wrong. There are child abuse cases day in and day out, so having a safe person for help is needed within the community. The last thing to do is make the youth afraid of police officers or using a phone call to them as a way to change bad behavior. In closing, one thing we know to be certain that defunding the police would not only harm or hurt communities, small and large, but it would defeat the purpose of what police officers stand for and what they do. We know that increased crime rates would be expected through lack of authority and order. We also know that the proper equipment and gear is just as important as training and funding further supplies to for those possibilities. We know that dispatch calls can be unpredictable, but with little help on all levels for mental health, this can be provided a safe outcome to both the officers and the persons involved. We know that human beings come in many shapes and forms. We all bleed, feel, and die. Life is precious. Without the protection of the thin blue line, fighting the dark from the light and the good from the evil, we would live in a world of adversity. Defunding the police is not the best interest of humankind. It is clear we need them as much as they need